All right, let's get right into it. Today we're pulling back the curtain on one of the coolest hidden features of your mind. What's really going on in those few seconds after you get distracted and the amazing way your brain yanks itself back to reality.
I mean, of course you have, right? It's totally universal. You're trying to work, a notification pops up, and bam, you're gone. Or you're in a meeting, and suddenly you're thinking about what to have for dinner. But have you ever stopped to wonder what's physically happening inside your head when you're trying to wrestle your attention back to where it's supposed to be?
Well, it turns out the answer is pretty wild. Your brain, and I mean this literally, goes for a spin. We're talking about groundbreaking new research from MIT that has found that, to get back on track, the neurons in your brain kick off this beautifully synchronized, rotating dance.
And you know, the best way to picture this comes from the lead researcher himself. He says to think of these waves as herders guiding a flock. Imagine your focused thoughts are a bunch of birds flying in perfect formation. A distraction comes along, a big gust of wind, and scatters them everywhere. Well, these rotating waves are like the sheepdogs that jump into action, skillfully rounding them all up and getting them back into formation.
So, let's take a closer look at what this elegant fix really is. Because this isn't just some nice metaphor for focus. Scientists have actually discovered that it's a measurable physical thing that's happening inside your brain right now.
The whole thing boils down to something scientists are calling rotating cortical waves. You know, think of a wave at a stadium. It's not one person running around the stands, right? It's thousands of people standing up and sitting down in a perfect coordinated pattern. That's what's happening here, but with millions of your neurons firing in a synchronized circular pattern. This wave literally sweeps across your prefrontal cortex, which is kind of like your brain's command center, to physically bring everything back into order.
The whole point of these waves? To help you recover. The researchers said the fluid motion looks like a murmuration of starlings in the sky. But here's the part that is absolutely mind-blowing. These waves can predict the future. If the brain managed to create a full 360-degree wave, the person in the study got the answer right. But if that wave sputtered out and didn't complete its circle, they made a mistake. That's a direct physical link between a brainwave and getting something right or wrong. Incredible.
Okay, so we've got this amazing observation. We can see the waves. But why? Is there a deeper theory that actually explains why this happens? Well, this is where things get really interesting, because this observation connects to a much bigger idea called the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM for short.
So, the BKN asks us to think about the brain a little differently. Instead of just a bunch of wires, imagine it's more like a continuous physical medium, almost like a block of jello. Every time you focus on something, you create a point of tension, a strain in that jello. And the brain is always working to smooth out that tension and get back to a state of balance.
So, this is the really crucial part. We have two big ideas on the table. The rotating wave is something scientists can literally see and measure with electrodes. It's real-world empirical data. Neural strain flow, on the other hand, is the theoretical model trying to explain the underlying physics of why that wave happens. You could say one is the what and the other is the why.
And this is where it all comes together. This is the moment where we ask, what happens when the thing we can actually see lines up perfectly with the predictions of this abstract theory?
Okay, check this out. It is just incredible. On the left, you have the biological conditions that neuroscientists know are necessary for these waves to even form in the brain. On the right, you have the theoretical requirements predicted by that BKM model, and they are a one-to-one match. A balanced excitation inhibition in the brain lines up perfectly with strain equilibrium conditions in the theory. It's the same story all the way down the list.
You have to understand, this is not just some happy accident. When you see what's physically happening in the brain line up this perfectly with a pure theory, it's a huge signal that we're on the right track to figuring out a really fundamental principle of how our minds actually work.
But the connection gets even deeper, and it leads to something that is honestly pretty profound. It's the idea that we might be able to measure a physical property of consciousness itself.
So this theory lets us connect these waves directly to our state of mind. When you're in a deep unconscious sleep, these waves are really slow and kind of choppy. Then as you move into a subconscious state, like dreaming, they get faster and more organized. And finally, when you are fully awake, conscious and focused on something, the waves become fast and coherent, zipping along at up to 5 meters per second.
I mean, just look at that progression. It is absolutely unmistakable. The more aware and conscious you are, the faster these physical waves are literally propagating across your cortex.
Just let that sink in for a second.
Your level of consciousness isn't just some abstract concept or feeling. It has a direct physical signature, a speed. The whole idea of the speed of thought might not be just a figure of speech after all.
And that brings us to the grand synthesis of it all. The rotating cortical wave isn't just like the theory of neural strain flow, it really appears to be the physical proof of it, the living, breathing evidence that our brain operates as this continuous medium, constantly balancing energy to create thought.
So now we can actually map out the anatomy of a single, focused thought. It starts at a core point of balance, sweeps across the cortex as a flow of energy, and then it completes its rotation to restore that balance, getting everything ready for the next moment of thinking.
So what's the big takeaway for you in all this? Well, first, the next time you have to fight off a distraction, just remember, you are literally generating a physical wave inside your head to do it. Second, it shows that your brain is this marvel of efficiency, using smooth analog waves, not rigid digital code. And finally, your own state of consciousness, from deep sleep to intense focus, has a physical speed that we can actually measure.
And that leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to chew on. If focusing your thoughts means creating and completing these physical rotating waves, what physical process is happening when you truly change your mind about something? What does it actually take to alter the path that those waves travel?